Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about pivoting. Both Keiran and Simon and I have recently pivoted in our plans, and we thought we would share by talking together about the experience of doing that, not least because our mutual pivoting experiences actually dovetail really nicely into each other. So I will kick off by saying that recently Simon and I have decided that we're not going to run a course that we were quite far along the line in having in place. People had signed up. We were quite clear on the content, the direction, the purpose, the vision. And yet we've come to a place as a result of some clear and timely thinking that we are not going to run the program at this time. And we can go into some more detail about that. And just by way of a headline, I'm going to invite Keiran to just share the way in which he is pivoting right now, and then we can have a conversation.
Thank you very much, Francis. So my pivoting is really around letting go of my need for perfection. I started businesses in the past and I focused on getting everything right before launching it. And I recognised when I had the conversation with you a couple of weeks ago about the pivot you were making with the Braver Way, that this could actually be an opportunity for me to, instead of putting all my eggs in the basket of I'll do your program and then these things will happen, I can actually take this as an opportunity to try this out in the moment and actually live what I've witnessed the two of you doing. So you've made it look effortless. I'm sure there's been a lot of paddling under the water, but it's been wonderful to watch you iterate the community as you go. And this move that you decided to make, very brave pivot, gave me the confidence to go, you know what, actually, I don't need to do absolutely everything first. What I need to do is to try this out and to try this out with people I trust and see if this concept works. And I think it's very exciting that something you chose not to do could inspire that in me.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. That was our agenda all the way along. Never really we're going to run a program. We just have an extremely clever way of talking about a program that we're never going to run in a way that makes people like you do amazing things. No, that's not true.
Well, I did say you were very clever, both of you. So,
Yeah, I think just now it'd be great just if you could, Simon, give a quick overview of what the Braver Way was going to be, possibly. And maybe if you could just give a really brief overview also of what we also have in place by way of the coach's marketing journey. And then I will talk about why it came about that we're not going to be doing the Braver Way, perhaps.
Yeah. So the Braver Way is a program of group coaching sessions accompanied by 5 sections of learning that were going to happen over a period of 20 weeks, all in all. So in essence, the program is still planned to happen. It's just not going to be happening in January as we initially thought. So we spent a lot of time looking at the sessions we run in the community, the sessions we needed to add into our diaries in order to make this happen. So we were going to have a group learning session, there was going to be group check-in sessions, there was going to be case studies, lots of other sessions to add into the calendar, which of course we were all very excited about and very keen to do. But the more we looked at that calendar, the more we had to shoehorn in and move other things around to try and make it work. So when we initially planned the sessions, we thought we were going to be able to do that, and it was all looking very promising in terms of our enthusiasm to fit that into a calendar that was fairly empty at the time we looked at January. In about October, it all looked very doable. Over the period of launching that, we also, over the period of sort of developing this idea, we also launched the Coach's Marketing Journey course, which is a 6-week self-service course in the community that coaches can work through. So the idea was that coaches would work through that journey. It's like a sort of textbook you buy that you can reference back for years to come. But you're first going through the textbook is like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. You do the exercises, you do the work, it's great. And then the idea is you then say, okay, I want to take that learning up a level to the Braver Way. And that's where the group work and the sort of more structured work begins. So that was the flow we had designed, and it was all great, and it was all looking sort of very, the map we had created, people seemed to get, and we had spoken to lots of people about it, Keiran included, and we had people signed up, invested, we were invested, they were invested. It was all looking really, really good. And then we actually started to get the planning in place. And that is probably where I shall hand back to Frances.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's bringing up quite a lot for me because, you know, for example, as you say, we were trying to sort of shoehorn all of the times in the diary. And, you know, by way of a bit of context, we've got members of our community who've moved to the other side of the world. We're really delighted that we've got people in the States now in the community. And we were just trying to figure out, not knowing who was going to even sign up for the program, how we could possibly create a time, you know, a timetable that might accommodate the people that we thought might do it. But, you know, what was really going on there was how much we really cared about making people who are part of our community feel seen. And something happened to me at the same time that this kind of big decision happened. And that was that I was interviewed by someone who is deeply involved in sort of very meaningful community building, to talk about a much more kind of human approach to platform development for communities that, you know, allowed for people who weren't your sort of typical extrovert, showy uppy people to be really seen and heard, and to feel like they were part of a community. And I, you know, I hadn't really ever thought too much about the way in which our community was kind of seeing the people that were not showing up. I was really enjoying that we have like a really core group of people that love coming to our events, that we were mindful, weren't we, Simon, of the fact that there were some people who were paying to be in our community every month and didn't seem to have the time, is what my assumption was, to come to the event. And the questions that were coming out of this interview were making me start to think, am I really sort of like, have I exhausted the work that is required to be able to look in the mirror and say I'm being the most committed community host, you know? And to be fair, we only launched the community in July. It's quite amazing that we've got you know, as many members as we have now. And, you know, from the cold light of day perspective, retention is as important as sales. But, you know, it's more than that. It's the relationships that we build in order that the business is going to serve us need to be, you know, deep throughout and, you know, amongst a diverse group of people. So what I read into trying to make sure that the sessions might be possible for people in the States and people in Australia was how much I care about the people in our community. So that's one thing I wanted to mention, because what we have decided to do instead in the new year is to focus on that, how we can think really carefully about what the experience of being in our community is, so that we can keep people in it, so that they're having a great time, and so that we can be clear about why you would want to join it. And then, you know, the other thing is, you mentioned the coach's marketing journey. We have worked so hard in the last 3 months to build this course, which we were previously saying was a self-service course that you could buy at a relatively affordable price point and work through at your own pace, on the basis that that would then allow for us to articulate why the Braver Way was a really good thing to do, because there was going to be a lot more group work involved. So there were the two things that I want to talk to in mentioning that are, firstly, that Keiran was an early adopter. You know, Keiran is one of our people and signed up to the course and went through it, and, you know, fed back that they could have done with a bit more group interaction. to get the most out of it, not as a criticism, but more as a kind of, oh, I wish there was a bit of group work going on here. And that's your and my happy place as well, is to provide group work. We do it in the form of tools and techniques and the reflection and confidence sessions that we have in the community every week. And so it was a bit regrettable that there wasn't that element of it. And also part of me was not terribly conscious until quite recently that I felt we could be doing more, having done so much work on it. Like we'd put so much into building the content. There are 6 chapters which have 10 different topics in each chapter, a little video in each one. Video is not my happy place. I had to move very quickly from absolutely no way in hell, thank you very much, to hi, this is a video about this, which itself was like quite a massive journey for me. And I'm really happy now that we can be doing more to kind of build into the course so that the work that we've done can be seen. So I'm going to stop there because I've been talking quite a lot. Keiran, what's coming up for you?
Well, there's a couple of things I'd love to reflect back from what both of you have just said, actually. One of which, Simon, was to something you were saying earlier about the move from the Braver Way to the coach's marketing journey being the sort of centre of focus, was that decision actually made me go back to the materials in the coach's marketing journey and look at them more closely and also more seriously, because I thought, okay, if the Braver Way is not happening at the moment, I need to actually invest my time more seriously than I've done so far, because I'd looked through quite a lot of the material, but I hadn't invested as much as I wanted to. And there was this kind of idea that, future Keiran, who's doing the Braver Way program, will have done all of these things. And suddenly future Keiran didn't exist. So present Keiran, who's actually the only Keiran that can exist, had to do that work. And that was very interesting for me, because I've now spent the last couple of weeks much more pointedly following that. And that's been a really interesting set of learning in itself. And a couple of other things I wanted to reflect back to you, Francis, was you're talking about wanting to be the best host you can, both of you. But actually, I think the hosting is so good in Better, Bolder, Braver that that's one of the reasons for my feedback about the coach's marketing journey. It was, this is self-service, but you've given me gold, and I want the gold to go with the coach's marketing journey. It was almost like we'd been served up this wonderful experience. So it was hard not to want that within the context of that. And I think the point about introverts within communities is really interesting too. And that's one of the things that's inspired me to think about community much more seriously, because for me, the power of learning about speaking confidently and using your voice in a confident way is so much more rich in a group situation, because you have the experience of speaking to people and you have the feedback, and that community really enriches everything about that experience. So to create a space where introverts do feel at ease enough to interact with the community, which I absolutely feel is what you've both done, is something that I felt really would allow me to try out my idea, because that was one of my fears. A lot of people that find public speaking a challenging thing, a terrifying thing, an anxious-making thing, are quite introverted. Not all of them, but many of them are. And it's really good to know that such a space can exist in an online community, because previously I thought that kind of quality of space can only be made in person, and you have proven to me that that is not the case.
Thank you. Okay. So can you also talk about the confidence that you now have to do, talk a bit more about the confidence that you now have to do the thing that you were always able to do but were held back from doing for some reason?
Vocally, do you mean?
Do you mean, are you asking me, am I asking you to vote?
I was just asking, clarifying the question. I'll answer it to what I thought. To my interpretation of the question in that case. So I was very lucky when I was younger to be blessed with both a musical household and a voice that I could just pick up tunes easily. I could learn things by ear, and I had this sort of 7-8 years of being able to use my voice with effortless ease, singing as a treble. And at 12, and this came back to me recently because I was doing an exercise in the Coach's Marketing Journey about story. And you commented that it got very meta, and indeed it did, but it fascinated me because my own journey with my voice, I realised, reflecting back, has been a hugely important part of why I feel this work is important. Because age 12, my voice changed, and I felt I kind of lost control of it for about 5 or 6 years. And were it not for the intervention of a kind singing teacher at Sixth Form College, I would never have done National Youth Choir. I would never have conducted choirs. I would never have gone on to actually do the communication work that I do, or to feel that I had the capacity to do the voice coaching that I started doing about 5 years ago. And given that that was all about this loss of confidence in something that had been so effortless and rich for me, and then this journey of, in my 20s, having to go, I can't really do everything by ear anymore. I really need to work at the sight reading and the theory and all the bits of music that I found a bit gritty and difficult that haven't come effortlessly. But that journey through the difficulties of that have led me to where I am now. And that is why I feel such an ease with community choirs and such an ease with people that find vocal work challenging, because I feel like I've had it from both sides. Both the place where it was easy and the journey of actually going through this stuff that feels really, really challenging. I mean, I remember this sort of real grief I felt in my teenage years about just not having that ability to use my voice in the same way. So that's why I feel so passionately about empowering people in how they speak. And for me, it's all about presence, and it's all about grounding yourself in the feeling. It's interesting, Simon was talking about some techniques he's been told over the years about public speaking, and there are many useful techniques for voice skills for public speaking, but I think one of the very most useful things is to know yourself and to put yourself in a space where you can become aware of what's holding you back and aware of what is important to you and speak to that. Because when you can speak to what's important to you in front of a group of people that accept you and welcome you as you are, you can bring that knowledge into speaking about, I mean, not things that aren't exciting, but, annual reports and budgets and things, maybe less exciting than things we're deeply passionate about, but you can take that physical experience of speaking with confidence, that learned experience, and that practice, crucially, into talking about other things. And of course that includes your work. And I think speaking with confidence and speaking with presence and valuing ourselves is something that is vitally important, especially it's been highlighted in the last couple of years how important that is. So that's what I want to make in a community.
Thank you so much. I love it. I definitely would love to sit and listen to you talking about reports and accounts. I just think I can imagine sitting in a boardroom and being really excited to have any meeting with you. And I'm not just saying that, I love your company, and we're very lucky to have you in the community. I want to also just take a moment to just share my love for Simon, because something that Simon did, which kind of was so confident and was so seeing, it really sort of catapulted the pivot for us. I couldn't see that I didn't have capacity. And that is something that I need, that I have a relationship with as a concept. It relates to being a woman, being a mother, being in the school system that I was in, and all sorts of other things. Not being able, I wouldn't call it perfectionism, because I've absolutely never been in the category of perfect at any stage of my life, but there's something of this sort of tenacity and not being able to just stop and go, is this working? Like, I just don't know if I'm that good at that necessarily. However, in partnership with Simon, I feel much more able to do it. And not least because there have been moments like the moment recently where Simon, who by the way has mental health first aid training amongst many, many other skills, was able to kind of look at the situation and be able to sort of spot things like burnout and name them as really important factors to consider. You know, we're all so busy considering profit. We're also busy considering efficiency. We're also busy considering purpose and, you know, all the things that we talk about to people about being able to identify audience, story, message, you know, all the tools and techniques that Simon teaches. But there's a really important thing in that as well, which is the happiness and the energizingness of something. And so Simon's ability to just stop and go, is this something that is going to make us feel good if we do it in this way at this time, I think is just so absolute gold dust. You know, you talk about gold. So I just wanted to mention that. And I'm so glad because actually very quickly we were able to say, no, we don't want to do this. It's going to be a bit annoying. We're going to have to tell Keiran, we're going to have to tell this person, that person, whatever. But how cool is it going to be that I can run reflection and confidence every week instead of every 2 weeks? How cool is it going to be that we're going to run these bi-weekly check-in sessions for everyone doing the course? Keiran will be happy about that. You know, oh, we can talk about sprints and we can do it 4 times a year. And, you know, you can, and suddenly all this value came out of being able to call out what wasn't going to make us happy. So for anyone listening that thinks pivoting is like in the same family as being able to talk about failure, I sort of just want to kind of posit a different perspective, which is how being able to kind of be self-aware and iterate with real clarity from moment to moment is to be able to be creative. I mean, Simon, you've run a business, you know, I've worked in industry for the same amount of time as you have, but I've always been kind of corporate client side, as it were, and you've run an agency, so you know how important it is as someone who runs their own business to be able to call your own, you know, to call yourself out. Can you maybe talk about that a bit?
I mean, when essentially there's little flags that crop up early and people can use them to spot them in themselves. The phrase is, well, I don't have time to do that. And not just in a general sense, but of something you really love doing. So if the thing that you've been telling everybody you really love doing, you then suddenly say, I don't have time to do that, then there's some priorities that have shifted. Now that isn't, you know, we don't want to get into a whole session on why or how, but the point being, there's some flags that start to crop up, and if you can spot them early, then you can see that, and it's starting to make excuses for why things are or aren't happening that you originally were set in stone, and now they're becoming more flexible. Having to move really important things in order to just fit boring stuff in because it's all getting too much. And when we started to look at it, we just figured that we needed a 50-hour week to do what we wanted to do, and we just don't have that. So something had to give, and the thing that had to give was the thing that we weren't yet doing. And it was as simple as that in my mind. So I needed to raise that issue early, because if one thing I've learned from running a business is that bad news is only bad news the longer you leave it. There's no such thing as bad news now. It's, you know, it's like, it's disappointing. It can let people down, yes, but it's not bad news. It's just, this is the reality. Whereas if I put it off for a week, then I'm worrying about it and it festers and it just builds up and up and up. So one thing we've learned, mainly, you know, being open here, through having 2 burnouts, is you look back and someone goes, oh, wow, well, did you see any of these warning signs? And you're like, yeah, about 6 months ago. And then as soon as me and Ben could see them in each other, we've been able to say like, hey, that's like, I noticed this has started happening. So do we need to talk about that? Do we need to find someone to help with this? How do we solve that problem? So I think it's through that self-awareness that I was able to sort of see, well, actually, do you know what? I think we've got we're going to have to disappoint some people is number one. But number two, I think we've got an opportunity to do something we're doing even better. And then I think we're going to build up a little bit of capacity and momentum, and our schedules will ebb and flow through the next 6 months to a point where a big project we've got coming up with the Association for Coaching will have passed. And all of that stuff that is sort of sitting in our schedules will have passed, and it's going to give us the capacity for that. So it was more a case of taking something we were excited about, disappointing people short term, but then immediately being able to create some good news. And if there's one thing my super secret power is turning anything negative into a positive. In an alternate universe, I would have made a great politician, but
I thought you were going to say make a great Buddhist or like, you know, monk rather than politician. There's actually yeah, let's not go down the religious route here, but you know, that I think that's a great skill, and I would like to think that I share that, in that, you know, I'm an optimist, and I'm quickly able to see how not only the messaging around something being positive, but the actual essence of it is actually a positive. So, you know, I think that's really wonderful. You just reminded me to say that when we designed the Brave Way, we didn't quite realize that we were also going to be running this very fabulous 10-session thing for the Association for Coaching, which we've been invited to do since then. And you reminded me also that the very thing that the red flag for you was when I said I don't have time to write. I'd managed to get chatting to the AC, and we've been invited to give some editorial for their magazine, which is a great opportunity, and I didn't have the time to write the article. And you know that that's my happy place, and you were like, wait, what? Because like that's the kind of stuff that I went into this business to be able to do. So yeah, you've just reminded me of that, which is true. So, you know, I think for any coaches listening to this conversation, the point of recording it for you is to remind you why you're doing this. You know, you've decided to become a coach and not work for someone else. You've decided to run your own business. You've decided to help some people. And we're in the business of helping you articulate with pride why it is that you want to do what you do, how you can help people. And at the same time, we want you to bear in mind the sustainability of your own business so that you can keep doing it and not burn out. So the whole point of this conversation is to remind you that, like us, you have the propensity to burn out. You have the propensity not to be confident enough to make something happen. And the alternative is that you can be supported in this community to kickstart the thing, and that the thing, as Keiran has articulated, might then also be speaking massively to, you know, big themes in your life that you have come to resolve and understand better, that are going to be really harmonious when they form the offering that you have for others. And you know, you should be able to call out when things are not working for you. And there's a positive in that, and you can build on it, and you can talk about it openly, and people will value it and be grateful for your authenticity. That was the drive of this conversation. Have either of you got anything that you'd like also to communicate that you feel people listening would like to hear?
Well, I think it will be a reiteration of what people are feeling watching this, but I'd just like to say how incredibly inspirational I think it is that both of you both are willing to, but also have a desire to talk about this and put this out there, because actually witnessing you going through this sort of live iteration, and you know, it is very inspirational, because it's so easy to wave the sort of the failure word around. And I think we were talking, Francis, about, you know, the Seth Godin quote about, you know, we're not really afraid of failure, we're afraid of criticism or being blamed for something. And therefore I love, in relation to that, Simon, what you were saying about it's not bad news, it's just, you know, it's just this thing that's happening at the time. And of course it only becomes bad news if this sort of apparition of being blamed or criticised becomes so big that you hold it there, And then, of course, later down the line, it may become that. But actually to work with it in the present and actually to adapt it and see what is this thing? It doesn't look quite like we made it or intended it to be, but what happens if we look from this angle? Oh, look, actually, maybe this shift can work in a different way. And you were doing that so beautifully. And I think that you both epitomise the name of the brand, which is very convenient, isn't it? And also lovely because it is incredibly brave to do what you're doing, and it's great, and I love it. So if I can create anything remotely similar to what you're doing in the vibe of my own work, then I shall be incredibly pleased and excited about that.
Well, I love it, and I think that we can assume from this that there is such great intention behind what you build. So anyone listening to this, I hope, would appreciate the thought that's gone into whatever ends up being the thing that you launch. And equally, I hope that people listening in will understand the integrity and sort of intention behind what Simon and I have built in the form of the Better Bolder Braver community, but also the Coach's Marketing Journey course, which now has loads of lovely interactive group work alongside the textbook that is jam-packed with tools and tips and beautiful things. Simon, have you got any final thoughts to share?
I think it's that opportunity or invitation to maybe like look at what you've got planned, look at the timescale you've set, look at the features that you've planned, look at who you're doing it for, who's telling you you have to do it by this date, what's motivating that. Just sort of maybe, as Keiran has sort of visually shown, just take the thing you've got and just look at it from the other angle and just ask yourself some of those questions. And if you need to move something or shift something, as an old business coach of mine used to say, is like, there's no point in having a fancy car if you don't look after the engine. And it's that thing of just like, if you're not being looked after, then it doesn't matter what you build, because there's not going to be anybody to run it, because you'll be knackered and you'll be not present, and people will be like, it's good, but they never really, you know what I mean? If something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. So if it takes another month, if it takes another 6 weeks, that's fine, as long as you create something that is the intention you set out to do. And secondly, my invitation there is that if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed, you're feeling a bit burnt out, do just reach out to us with the messaging thing in the corner of the community and just say, I'm feeling really stuck, I've hit a complete block, can you help? And we'd be more than happy to have a chat about what's going on for you, what you've got planned, what's happening. Do reach out. Don't feel like you can't reach out to us just because you haven't got a session booked or something. Just message us and we'll jump in.
Love it. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who's listened. If you've got any questions, feel free to let us know.
See you later, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.